June 11th, 1962. In the middle of the night, 3 prisoners vanished from the most secure prison in America. Their cells were locked, their beds appeared occupied, and the guards noticed nothing. But beneath the blankets were fake heads, carefully designed to fool anyone looking through the bars. By the time the alarm was raised, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin were gone. They had escaped Alcatraz. Outside, however, waited the freezing, violent waters of San Francisco Bay. Authorities concluded that the men probably drowned, but no bodies were ever found. And decades later, strange clues began to suggest something far more incredible. What if they actually survived? Alcatraz was designed to hold men other prisons could not control. Sitting alone in the middle of San Francisco Bay, the prison was surrounded by cold water, powerful currents, and constant surveillance. For nearly 3 decades, dozens of prisoners attempted to escape. Most were captured, shot, or believed to have drowned. But in 1962, 3 inmates believed they had found a weakness. Frank Morris was an experienced escape artist with a reputation for intelligence and careful planning. John and Clarence Anglin were brothers who had grown up swimming in the waters of Florida. And together, they began preparing one of the most ambitious prison escapes in American history. But they couldn't simply run through the gates. To escape Alcatraz, they would have to secretly break through the prison itself. The plan began with a discovery inside their cells. Behind each small ventilation opening was a narrow utility corridor that was rarely watched. The concrete around the vents had been weakened by years of moisture and salt. Using stolen spoons, improvised tools, and a homemade drill, the men slowly widened the openings in their cell walls. But they had to work without being caught. During music hour, the sound of instruments helped hide the noise. At night, they covered the damaged walls with fake cardboard grills. Once the holes were large enough, the prisoners could crawl into the hidden corridor behind their cells. From there, they climbed upward and secretly created a workshop above the cell block. And inside that hidden space, their plan became even more ambitious. They weren't just preparing to escape the prison. They were building a way to escape the island. Escaping the cell block was only half the problem. Even if they reached the shore, miles of cold water still separated them from freedom. So the men began collecting raincoats from inside the prison. Over time, they gathered more than 50. Inside their secret workshop, they carefully cut and joined the rubber material together, creating a homemade inflatable raft. They even built life vests and wooden paddles. To inflate the raft, they modified a small musical instrument into a makeshift air pump. Everything had to be built in secret and hidden from the guards. But there was another problem. During nightly inspections, guards expected to see every prisoner asleep in his bed. So the escapees created one final deception. Using soap, concrete dust, paint, and real hair collected from the prison barbershop, they made realistic dummy heads. Placed beneath the blankets, the heads could make it appear that the men were still sleeping. Now the route was ready. The raft was ready. And the guards had no idea what was about to happen. On the night of June 11th, 1962, everything was finally ready. After the prison went quiet, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers placed the dummy heads in their beds and covered them with blankets. Then, one by one, they slipped through the openings behind their cells. A 4th prisoner, Alan West, was supposed to join them. But when the time came, he couldn't get through the opening in his cell fast enough. The others couldn't wait. Morris and the Anglin brothers climbed through the utility corridor and made their way toward the roof. From there, they crossed a dangerous section of the prison, avoiding guards and searchlights. Eventually, They reached the ground near the shoreline. They carried their homemade raft and other equipment with them. Behind them stood Alcatraz. Ahead of them was the freezing darkness of San Francisco Bay. Sometime around 10 p.m., the three men disappeared into the night. It was the last confirmed sighting of Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin. By morning, Alcatraz would discover that the impossible had happened. The next morning, a guard approached one of the cells for the routine wake-up. When the prisoner didn't respond, the guard reached toward the head on the pillow. It fell away. The deception was finally exposed. Within minutes, Alcatraz went into lockdown. Guards searched the cells and discovered the openings hidden behind the ventilation grills. The FBI and Coast Guard launched a massive search across San Francisco Bay. Boats and aircraft searched the water and nearby shoreline for any sign of the three men. Investigators eventually recovered several items believed to be connected to the escape, including a homemade life vest and personal belongings. But they found something far more important missing. No bodies were ever recovered. Investigators believed the powerful currents and cold water could have killed the escapees. But without bodies, the case could never provide a simple answer. And soon, clues began appearing that suggested another possibility. Maybe Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers had survived. Officially, investigators concluded that the three men most likely drowned in San Francisco Bay. The water was cold, the currents were powerful, and their homemade raft was never recovered intact. But the mystery didn't end there. Over the following years, strange clues began to emerge. Members of the Anglin family claimed they received mysterious postcards and messages after the escape. Relatives also said that flowers were anonymously delivered after the death of the brothers' mother. Then came one of the most intriguing pieces of evidence. A photograph reportedly taken in Brazil in 1975 appeared to show two men who resembled John and Clarence Anglin. Years later, facial recognition analysis was reported to have found similarities between the men in the photograph and the Anglin brothers. Then, in 2013, authorities received a letter claiming to have been written by John Anglin. The writer claimed that all three men had survived the escape, and that Frank Morris and Clarence Anglin had later died. But investigators could never conclusively prove that the letter was genuine. More than 60 years after the escape, the truth remains uncertain. Did three men die in the freezing waters of San Francisco Bay? Or did Alcatraz's most famous escape actually succeed? Decades have passed since that night in June 1962. Alcatraz is no longer a federal prison, but the escape of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers remains its greatest mystery. Investigators searched for years, followed leads, interviewed witnesses, and examined possible evidence. Yet no confirmed trace of the three men ever provided a final answer. If they drowned, the ocean kept their final moments a secret. But if they survived, they accomplished something almost unimaginable. They escaped one of America's most secure prisons, crossed the dangerous waters of San Francisco Bay, and disappeared without ever being conclusively found. Perhaps somewhere beyond Alcatraz, three men began completely new lives. Or perhaps the truth disappeared into the cold waters that very night. More than 6 decades later, we still don't know. And that uncertainty is exactly why the Alcatraz escape remains one of the most fascinating unsolved mysteries in history. So what do you think really happened? Did Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers survive the escape from Alcatraz? Or did the cold waters of San Francisco Bay claim their secret forever? Tell us your theory in the comments. And if you enjoy true mysteries, unexplained disappearances, and incredible stories from history, subscribe to Mystery Atlas and like this video. Because some mysteries aren't forgotten, they're simply never solved.